Hey, how you doing? I'm Adam Post, publisher of College of the Dead, publisher of more than 1,000 independent comic books. It's a lot of comic books, over 30 years. I don't even know how many. There's a lot of them. And I was really excited to do those, but I'm back publishing through ComicsGate. I took a few years off in the 2000s, and thanks to ComicsGate, I'm coming back, and I'm coming back strong. This is a ComicsGate related video. It's a Secrets of the ComicsGate Network series video, and I'm getting a strong vibe kind of from my experience and the correspondence that I'm kind of seeing on Twitter, things people are saying, things people are doing, quiet from some of the major companies, that the biological virus that we're all dealing with now could potentially kill. And in comics, I think it's absolutely going to kill the SJW social virus. And here's what I'm getting at. First, the SJW social virus is nonsense like this. Things like politically correct characters. Now, God bless them that when Marvel created these characters, they went and, yes, they went with the New Warriors title, which was an existing title, but they didn't try to take existing characters and then have them go through some sort of a personal life change and turn them into Snowflake and Safe Space. But anyway, they did create these terrible characters. They're ridiculous. They're just ridiculous. There are no comic fans that are interested in this. Now, that said, maybe these are heroes to the editors, and they want to inspire young people that are like this. What I mean like this, though, but no one's like this, right? No one's actually running around taking pride in being a snowflake. I really don't know what they're getting at. I don't know what they're getting at. But again, at least like maybe they didn't take Spider-Man and Wolverine and then make them change their name to Safe Space, which they're more than capable of doing. But even Snowflake and Space and Safe Space could be cool. This is a friend of mine, Andrew Huerta, who's part of ComicsGate, did an incredible book called Sovereign. Doing his rendition, his take on Safe Space and Snowflake. They're cool looking. They're cool looking. You can make anything cool if you want to make it cool. Of course, you need the right talent. But, there's tons of talent. There's an incredible amount of talent that are just ready to do great work. All you have to do is let them do it and pay them, as opposed to this kind of silliness. But how could these guys get destroyed? How could Marvel's SJW Infection and mainstream comics, SJW Infection in general, even DC Comics has got it now. Image Comics has certainly got it. How could that get killed off by the biological virus we're dealing with? Well, I think there's an excellent chance it will, and here's why. If you think of it, say someone's got, unfortunately, right? God forbid, say someone's got diabetes, and it's kind of debilitating. It's difficult to live with diabetes. I don't have it, thank God. A friend of mine does have it. They take medicine for it. And as long as they take care of themselves, they're okay. But they suffer with this. They have it. It's kind of like what SJW comics are. There are comic book fans still. There are people out there buying comics. If all the comics look like this in the mainstream outlets and in the comic stores, then they kind of get stuck with these SJW characters and these SJW versions of characters. Wolverine doing weird stuff in space with Colossus on a moon, like nothing to do with Wolverine. But but you're stuck sort of buying those comics, and you may not like them, but if you're a comics fan, you got rid of a lot of them. Still, that SJW virus can be hosted in that dying and bleeding to death, but healthy enough to still sort of exist comic book market of comic book stores. Yeah, but well, not when a biological virus comes along, like the one that recently has from China, causing comic book stores to be forced to be closed. It's one thing for them to all start to kind of financially fail and close, but it's another thing when the state, as has now happened now, the state of New York, the state of Connecticut, the state of California, even in Texas, the state of Illinois, have said, listen, we want all non-essential businesses closed. And that non-essential can mean different things in different states, but it definitely means comic books all over the world. It's considered to be non-essential. It's not a life-saving type of thing, even though they have liquor stores open in New York. In any case, comic book stores buy comic books on a non-returnable basis. They agree to buy a minimum specific quantity. They guarantee that they will pay for them, and they're expected to pay for those comics when they come in, typically on a Wednesday, on a non-returnable basis. So they're forced to pay for them. Well, with stores being closed all over the country, there are financial effects from the current biological virus, and people reprioritizing their lives. But at the same time, comic book stores are not opening up just so they can receive product on a Wednesday that they're then forced to pay for that they can't give to customers. Obviously, some shops can sell some comics online. There are people whose comic shop businesses are focused on online sales, but it's not the same as the brick and mortar stores, right? So the brick and mortar stores are buying comics on a Wednesday with the absolute need to sell them over the next few days, make as much money back as they can, and then pay for the books for the following week. So what does that mean in reality? Well, this guy, C.B. Cebulski, not a lot of people like this guy. So he puts out from Marvel that everyone here at Marvel has been working closely all week with our talent, retailers, distributors, and even fans. Like the fans are the most important ones, by the way, CB. Around the world to make sure that we meet their differing needs and concerns. So what they did at Marvel was Marvel's response so far, and I haven't seen any response from DC, but Marvel's response so far has been, well, we'll give bigger discounts to you, but you're still going to be forced to take the books non-returnable. Now, that's, kind of ridiculous. The comic book stores were struggling as it was. So, if they've got an invoice for $1,800 and Marvel says, well, tell you what, just give us like $1,600 or give us, $1,200. That doesn't do any good for the comic store. Those sales are not going to be there. If the comic book stores were to close for, say, 30 days, and then they open up again in 30 days, and they say, okay, we have all of last month's old product. Who here wants to buy it to their customers? It's unsaleable. It was unsaleable to begin with. People were just buying it kind of because. There are people that refuse to not buy the new issue of Spider-Man, for example, no matter what, or any new #1 comic from Marvel, no matter what. But the sales aren't going to be there for the most part. It's all garbage. They could throw it away. So Diamond put out kind of a responsible statement. Now, people don't necessarily understand this, okay? But Diamond Comics, yes, they are the distributor for the comic book market, but they don't work the same with all publishers. So a small publisher that everybody loves, Alterna, Peter Simeti's company, sells comic books to Diamond on a non-returnable basis that will then be sold to comic book stores on a non-returnable basis. So Diamond will order them. They put in a purchase order, which just says, hey, we want to buy this many copies, and we will pay this amount of money within a certain amount of time. And then, again, Diamond buys them and sells them to the stores. Marvel doesn't work that way with Diamond, and neither does DC, and neither does Image, and neither does Dark Horse. Now, Dynamite, I don't know what they're doing with DC. With Diamond, they probably have a similar relationship. What the relationship is with the big companies, which is why Diamond can't just put out a statement and say, this is exactly what we're doing for all publishers. they use Diamond as an agent. So Diamond takes a percentage, almost like a service, like a FedEx, to collect money from the retail stores, to collect orders from the retail stores, and to deliver the comics to the retail stores. So what the difference is Diamond makes less money than they used to before the 90s comics boom, but Diamond also doesn't take the risk of bills being paid for those major publishers. Now, I haven't sold Diamond comics to Diamond for a few years. It's possible they changed this policy, but this was kind of an understood policy that they established in the 90s, and we talked about it in the 90s. And then it was very interesting because the big publishers were able to set their own discounts. As an indie publisher, you don't get to do that. You don't get to say, oh, well, my comics are returnable now. Like, no, Diamond's not interested in just managing everybody's comics as publishers, the way that maybe a publisher wants to try something new. It's no, if you're a major company and you have an agency relationship with Diamond, then you're allowed to do that. Then you're allowed to, with some consultation with Diamond, decide what your terms are going to be. That said, probably Dynamite has that kind of relationship with Diamond because they've made some recent statements about how they're going to respond to the virus problem. But I like this from Diamond. Diamond said they're going to put comic shops accounts on hold over coronavirus pandemic. So this was going back to the 18th. I actually didn't see this article. I was messaging with Larry's Comics on Twitter, and I didn't see this. I was asking him a little bit about this, and this is sort of like a small thing. It's idiosyncratic, but it is a big deal. So this means putting the account on hold means that a comic shop can tell Diamond, hey, listen, we're closing down for a few weeks. Don't give me invoices. Don't give me books. Hold on to my account. That's a good thing for Diamond to do. That's a leadership move for Diamond. What Diamond can't do is Diamond can't say, listen, we're going to make all the comic books returnable, because it's not even Diamond's decision. It's the publisher's decisions in many cases, especially at the agency level. So Diamond's explaining here that they're coordinating a coronavirus response with major comic book publishers. Okay, so they're talking to major publishers. Now, what you've seen is great leadership from Nick Barucci. I'm very impressed. Nick is reducing discounts for Dynamite Comics, which is helpful. But he's also cutting down on some of their titles, and he's also making them returnable. You need to make comics returnable. So as I was telling CB Cebulski, listen, you guys can try to avoid introducing mass returnability to the comic book stores. And the SJWs do not want returnability. That's the last thing they want in comic book stores. Why? Because the books will be forced to be saleable. Because they're going to actually have to find customers for this. Now, if they did this, they'd have customers. I'd buy that. You'd buy that. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's cool looking. You're not going to buy this. I'm going to look at it and still shake my head and just be like, how the hell could this exist? But it'll exist, and but if it's going to exist in today's comic book market, no matter what Marvel tries to say or do, they're going to be forced to offer them returnable, not just that one title. In fact, when comic book stores started, they were sold non-returnable to stores, and that was fine because stores wanted to guarantee that they could get a certain amount of every copy of every book. So that was what the real purpose of comic book stores were. Their comics were first sold on newsstands. And when comics were sold on newsstands, if you wanted to get every issue of Spider-Man or X-Men or Daredevil or whatever, those were comics I liked, then you needed to, and get them in perfect condition. You couldn't be guaranteed to get those at all from just buying them off of a newsstand, because not even every newsstand had every comic. So the comic book stores came in as a way that people could know as a customer that you can go to a comic book store, they can reserve copies for you, and then you would know what you'd get, and then you could have a comic book store could also cultivate customers and be like, all right, these 300 people would want Spider-Man every month, and they could develop a relationship and help develop a market for that. Jim Shooter was a big part of creating that. It was created by also created with Phil Suling, Jim Shooter was at Marvel and helped move that along. They even created Dazzler, which was the first exclusive superhero comic for comic book stores. And even that sold like 100,000 copies at the time. But anyway, yeah, so Diamond doesn't really control all of what the market can do anymore. They have a limited amount of leverage. So I'm happy to see them put stuff on hold. Good old Steve Jeppy. I'm happy to see them put comic stores accounts on hold. And I guess Steve Jeppy's got to be careful about what he says. He doesn't want to try to push Marvel in one direction or another. It's not exactly his business to do that. But, you know, they're going to have to be returnable. It's just, there's absolutely no way. And what they'll try to do is they'll do returnable for a limited amount of time. So you've got, Image Comics was the first to come out and say, hey, we're going to do returnable comics. And that's fine. That's a good thing for Image to say. We want to make returnable comics. And, that's fine. Image, though, they don't pay their creators a page rate. So, who is going to subsidize that? Is Image Comics going to subsidize that? What I'd like to see, Image Comics charges individual creators a fee. Now, Robert Kirkman's a multimillionaire, if not a billionaire at this point. Good for Robert. And Todd McFarlane does very well for himself. And again, these guys have worked long and hard, and they earn their money. But the independent publishers, the independent creators, hopefully we're going to hear that Image is going to waive their fees to independent creators, right? Because Image charges about $2,000 against every comic that an independent creator publishes through Image. I'd like to see that response, that Robert Kirkman is personally going to spend the money. And again, I'm not in his pockets. God bless him. He made a huge successful title. But Image needs to figure out how they're going to support creators, because it's creators that are going to pay at Image Comics. It's creators that are going to pay for this. So if a comic, was to have, let's say, 7,000 copies of whatever number one coming out through Image, $2,000 would have to be paid to Image office overhead before the creator would see a nickel. Well, now they're going to have to pay for that $2,000 plus the normal costs of printing and distribution, which is more money, plus they're going to have to absorb losses to retailers. So again, it's good for Image to come out and say that, and hopefully push Marvel and DC eventually into returnability soon, which they should have already announced, because they're going to have to do it anyway. But in the meantime, creators are going to have to pay. Image creators will pay. Dynamite, again, completely doing the right thing here. Offer returnability. That's great to see. Valiant, this is a little odd. Valiant supposedly are telling creators, stop drawing, stop working. We're going to just shut down for a month. Now, this is, I don't know, Rich Johnson's several and well-connected sources. I know the publisher of Valiant. I haven't called them. I am curious, but I'm not going to, because it's kind of none of my business. And if I told you what he told me, then he'd know I violated the confidence anyway, so I'm not going to do that. But in any case, this is bizarre. This is bizarre to just be like, well, we're not going to say anything, and we're just going to tell creators stop working. If you're ever in a situation where you're hiring a freelance creator, even if you don't need their work because there's a freaking pandemic going on, you do not tell them to stop working. Okay. Valiant had a really, really hard time with this biological virus, because they just launched their Bloodshot movie, which was supposed to be the first of a series of movies, and that was like going to make Valiant. And now they released Bloodshot. It's going to be coming out. It went out through movie theaters, but it did horrible because nobody was going to movie theaters. And I heard bad things about the movie. I haven't seen it. God only knows. Hopefully, it's a great movie. But with movie theaters being shut down right now, that's not the right time to be releasing a movie. They're going to release it through video on demand, as are some other movies. It'll get killed. It's not going to do well. So Valiant Comics telling creators pencils down. It's very odd. It's very odd. This, I'm sure this is just a weird decision, because creators need this money. You can't stop creators from working and say, listen, just stop working for a month. They need the money. So even if you're not going to publish the comics, you got to make sure the creators are still getting their money. It's unlike what I've seen Valiant do in the last couple of years. They've always paid people. They've always let people work. this is the kind of move that you would make, and this is just my 2 cents from being in comic book publishing for a while, 30 years. This is a move that you make if you're going to close the operation. You're just going to say, listen, this stupid publishing thing is not working. I hope they don't. We need more comics, although they could perhaps change around who some of their editors are. This is the kind of thing that just makes no sense. They're not even working remotely. So it's as if someone cut the funding to it. It's very strange. It's really very strange. Both Comics, I don't know who the hell they are. Are they good? Damian Wassel, has he got good comics? I don't know what their response is, but it doesn't seem like it's very meaningful. Aspen has been around a long time. Aspen's announcing that they're going to suspend all comics publishing. I mean, that kind of makes sense, when they're pinching their pennies. But if Aspen is suspending, what's Valiant doing by telling creators to stop working? This is a small company. They don't have $1 million in funding. They're not owned by China like Valiant is. Well, not the entire country, but the Chinese investment company, DMG, Valiant is owned by. Keep that in mind when you see bizarre stuff out of Valiant, that, it's owned by a communist country's investment bank. This is ridiculous. The increased discounts. They're going to be returnability. I guarantee you. What is it? 21st of March. By the 28th of March, latest, Marvel announces very reluctantly. They announce returnability. Will this be an extinction event for comic shops? No, I don't think it will. I think that there's going to be an intense month that's going to lead to a transition of returnability for comic shops. I think there are going to be massive returns. And that's why I think the SJW virus it's going to live through mass media, but it's in trouble in comic book stores. Because the thing is, once you introduce a change, in the business model, like returnability, the returnability is going to last probably for at least 3 months. But I think that it's going to be a trend that sticks. And I think it's going to stick because there really is no viability for comic book stores without returnability anyway. And the virus, the biological virus, is just a bigger threat at the moment than the slow-killing SJW virus. This is a nice idea, this relief fund launch for comic book shops. I mean, but, honestly, for people who've made hundreds of millions of dollars leveraging off of the popularity of comics and comic book shops, whether it's Disney or Kirkman or McFarlane or anyone else, again, I'm not counting anybody's money for them. Great for them for their success, but you guys, you have to kind of get together and think about, like, do you want to make an investment in the industry? And I think that they will. I think that you'll see some wealthy comic book creator come out and say, hey, I'd be nothing without you guys. I want to back shops, and they'll do it. I hope. They certainly should. Free Comic Book Day postponed, and this was Image, making their announcement. So that's my take. My take is, look, there's no way, there's just no way that a dying industry that's being strangled by SJWs with their really, really, really unsaleable, bizarre garbage comics is going to be able to continue to slowly kill an industry that actually right now is dead. There are no stores that are able to really function and operate normally, even for them, even at their reduced level. So this is it. This is the death of the non-returnable comic book industry, populated and strangled by SJW creations, destroying what was good about comic books. There's no more of this to exist. This is a bizarre end to it with this snowflake binary superhero, ridiculousness. And I think we're going to see good things, though. I'm very optimistic. And, look, I'm ComicsGate. I sell my comics direct to consumers, not through comic book stores. That's my focus. But at the same time, I'd love to see the comic book industry get healthy again, produce good stories, show new creators the way to make better comics, and create an environment where people can really be passionate about comic books and enjoy them. I think it's really good for it's good for the culture. It's good for people to have real heroes again. So this could be a real positive thing. But let me tell you, once they go returnable, the returnable's not coming back. It's not going to go back to non-returnable. There's no way they can put that genie back in the bottle, especially when it becomes so apparent that the unsaleable junkie comics are just piling up, and now they could just be put back in a box and returned for actual money to buy things that can be resold. So it's an interesting time for comics. Make sure you also check out my campaign, College of the Dead. It's going along great. ComicsGate is doing amazing for me and for the project. We are almost at 100% greater, so really 200% of what the other comic funded the first time out, and that was over a 60-day time period. This is only 13 days. It's doing amazing. This is a story of a zombie apocalypse that takes place on a college campus, and the students are all unique. It's very interesting. There's a student, Brendan, that carries forward from the first College of the Dead book, and we see how he was kind of drawn into the zombie apocalypse and what he was facing, a situation with another student that he was partying with and getting drunk with right before the zombie apocalypse took place. And then he has to kind of go, and she rushes off. He's got to go find her. It's really, really interesting. I will see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.